So back to art. I was actually just recently at the immersive exhibit on Van Gogh in Los Angeles. It's now actually showing in a number of many cities throughout the world, and each show is actually a little bit different. It's custom to the venue that they've picked, but it is a fabulous immersive experience. I do, if you are interested in, or at all even remotely like Van Gogh's art, I really recommend it. And I don't think ticket prices are that particularly high right now. I think in some cities you can get it for a fairly good deal.
Yeah, the immersive trend started a while ago. We saw that with the Art Talk on Kusama, which was our number 60, and then also with Terrell, which was Art Talk number 28. But its popularity has solidified in today's public interests. Immersive art is not participative art. It's actually you actually get to be influenced by the narrative, but it's also not passive either. So you get to find yourself, kind of spin yourself into the art of Van Gogh at the immersive event, AJ, that you're talking about, and also get to see kind of timeless art, light, sounds, images, kind of all around you, and it's wildly fascinating to see. And it's what's really cool about it is you get to see his art in an entirely different perspective. And so you see things you probably would have never seen before. And it's phenomenal. I encourage everybody to go.
Yeah, it really is. At times during the immersion, I felt as though I was actually just kind of running through or shifting through Van Gogh's fields of sunflowers, or drinking absinthe with our very own Paul Kodak in the outdoor cafe in Orleans. That's a reference to an earlier town hall segment that he gave us on the liqueur absinthe.
Yeah, if you don't know Paul,
into that, yeah.
If you don't know Paul, it's incredible when AJ made that connection, how much he actually does look like Van Gogh. Paul has 2 ears though, but
that little bit of beard growth might have aided in that. So,
yeah, right.
Indeed. So, and also into the very famous series of art he did around the Starry Night, which was referred to by our singer, Don McLean. So the combination of all these feelings really set me into kind of the very heart of Van Gogh when I went to the show. I'm sure it will for you as well. So Sarah, can you tell us more about Van Gogh?
I absolutely can. Hi, everyone. Or I guess I should say aloha. I'm coming to you live from Hawaii this week. But yes, we are, as you can see, my little tropical background, but we will be talking about Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh this week. So born into an upper middle class family, Van Gogh, excuse me, let me start the PowerPoint. There we are. He always drew as a child and was very serious and quiet and thoughtful. And as a young man, he actually worked as an art dealer, often traveling, but became quite depressed after he was transferred to London. And he turned to religion and spent time as a Protestant missionary in southern Belgium. And he drifted in ill health and solitude before taking up painting in 1881, having moved back home with his parents. And his younger brother, Theo, supported him financially, and the two kept a long correspondence by letter. Here are some of his self-portraits he did, and his early works were mostly still lifes and depictions of peasant laborers, and contain few signs of the vivid color that really distinguished his later work and the portraits you can see here. So in 1886, he moved to Paris, where he met members of the avant-garde, as we're all very familiar with, including Émile Bernard and Paul Gauguin, who were reacting against the Impressionist sensibility. And his work developed, and as his work developed, he created this new approach to still lifes and local landscapes, and his paintings grew brighter, and he developed this style that became fully realized during his stay in Arles in the south of France in 1888. And during this period, he broadened his subject matter to include a series of olive trees, wheat fields, and sunflowers. Speaking of sunflowers, Van Gogh's Sunflower series was intended to decorate the room that was set aside for Gauguin at the Yellow House, which was what he called his studio and apartment in Arles. And the lush brushstrokes kind of built up this texture of the sunflowers. And Van Gogh employed a wide spectrum of yellows to describe the blossoms, due in part to recently invented pigments that made new colors and tonal nuances possible. So Van Gogh used these sunny hues to express the entire lifespan, from the full blooms in bright yellow to the wilting and dying blossoms in this kind of ochre color. And the idea of painting flowers in a vase is a pretty simple idea, but Van Gogh's experimentation with the line and texture give it new life. And on the right, you can see all the sunflowers planted outside the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. Wheat Field with Crows is commonly stated as Van Gogh's last painting he created. It was made on a double square canvas and depicts a dramatic cloudy sky filled with crows over a wheat field. Pretty self-explanatory by the name. And this sense of isolation is heightened by this central path leading to nowhere and kind of the uncertain direction of the flight of the crows. And Kathleen Erickson, an art writer, says this painting expresses both sorrow and a sense of his life coming to an end. The crows are used by Van Gogh as a symbol of death and rebirth, or of resurrection. And the road, which is these contrasting colors of red and green, is said by Erickson to be a metaphor for a sermon that he gave based on the Pilgrim's Progress, which is the story where the pilgrim is sorrowful that the road is so long, yet he rejoices because the eternal city waits at the journey's end. So this piece is very foreshadowing of his life coming to an end. I personally love this piece and have had the opportunity to see it in person at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. Van Gogh started painting irises within a week of entering an asylum in May of 1889, and he was really working from nature in the hospital garden. He called painting the lightning conductor for my illness, because he felt that he could keep himself from going insane by continuing to paint. And this painting was probably influenced by Japanese ukiyo-e woodblock prints, like many of his works and those by other artists of the time. And the similarities with that occur with these strong lines, unusual angles, and softness and lightness. And the blooming fields of flowers show life without tragedy. So, as we could see from the last three paintings I've shown, the lines get more and more defined. So I'll go back to, and you can see it's a little more wispy and blended with this one, and irises gets a little more defined. And then with this piece, it's so defined, it almost looks like an animation or a cartoon in a way. And this can be attributed, as I mentioned before, to the inspiration from ukiyo-e paintings from Japan. And if you recall, we talked about the famous ukiyo-e artist Hokusai a few months back. And so the title for this piece is quite self-explanatory and was his bedroom in Arles at what he called the Yellow House. And there are three different versions of this painting, easily distinguishable from one another by the pictures on the wall to the right. So the first version never left the artist's estate. Since 1962, it's been in possession of the Vincent van Gogh Foundation and is on permanent loan to the Van Gogh Museum. The second version is in possession of the Art Institute of Chicago, and the third version entered the French National Collections in 1959, following the French-Japanese peace settlement, and is actually on permanent display at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. So I know I said irises was one of my favorites, but this one really takes the cake for me. I remember seeing Cafe Terrace at Night first in elementary school and being instantly transported to this quaint little street. And this was one of the first scenes Van Gogh painted during his stay in Arles, and the first painting where he used a nocturnal background. And so he kind of uses these contrasting colors and tones, and he achieved a really luminous surface that pulses with an interior light. You could see that bright yellowy orange coming from inside the cafe and how it reflects off the roof. And it's almost in defiance of the darkening sky. And the lines of composition all point to the center of the work, which really draws the eye along the pavement as if the viewer is strolling the cobblestone streets. And this cafe still exists today, and it's a mecca for Van Gogh fans visiting the south of France. Describing this painting in a letter to his sister, he wrote, quote, "Here you have a night painting without black, with nothing but beautiful blue and violet and green, and in the surrounding, the illuminated area colors itself sulfur pale, yellow, and citron green. It amuses me enormously to paint the night right on the spot." So he painted on the street at night, And he recreated the setting directly from his observations, a practice that is inherited from Impressionists painting en plein air. However, unlike the Impressionists, he didn't record the scene merely as the eye observed it, but imbued the image with kind of this spiritual and psychological tone that echoed his individual and personal reaction. And this piece is just so romantic to me, and maybe one day I'll have to visit that cafe in the south of France. Starry Night over the Rhone is one of Vincent van Gogh's paintings in Arles at night. It was painted on the bank of the Rhone that was only a 1 or 2 minute walk from the Yellow House. And the challenge of painting at night intrigued Van Gogh. The vantage point he chose for Starry Night over Rhone allowed him to capture the reflections of the gas lighting in Arles across the kind of glimmery blue water of the Rhone. And in the foreground, 2 lovers stroll by the banks of the river. And speaking of starry nights, we would be remiss not to mention what's considered Van Gogh's pinnacle achievement, the Starry Night. And unlike most of his works, Starry Night was painted from memory and not out in the landscape. The emphasis on interior emotional life is clear in his swirling, tumultuous depiction of the sky, which was a radical departure from his previous, more naturalistic landscapes. And Van Gogh depicted the view at different times of day and under various weather conditions. So in this one painting, you have sunrise, moonrise, windy days, a day with rain, and you can see all of those coming together in this final painting. And it does have a sense of chaos to it, but it seems very balanced with the curves and the lines. And ultimately, Starry Night is famous for advancing the act of painting beyond the representation of the physical world. So as AJ and Jacques talked about, and you may have also seen it being written about or advertised, but there is the immersive Van Gogh exhibit where his paintings come to life. And I personally think he's such a great artist for this type of experience because we've seen his pieces have such motion and emotion to them. And when he was, and what he was doing at the time was such groundbreaking art. And in general, I think this is a great concept because it's a way to get more people experiencing art that may not have visited a traditional museum. But overall, Van Gogh posthumously became one of the most famous artists of all time. He created about 2,100 artworks, including around 860 oil paintings, most of which date from the last 2 years of his life. So it's quite remarkable. Thanks, everyone.